Case 22. Subject claims to have seen the end of his planet.
I saw it! Our planet! 3 others, all gone! I saw it!
Case 22. Threat level 5. The Organization 4 in memory found a man in the desert, dehydrated, disoriented, claiming he had seen the end of Earth. His testimony matched fragments from other classified cases, radio signals on dead frequencies, missing flight telemetry, and scorched soil at the site where he appeared. What follows is his own account, and the recovered images reconstructed from the investigation. A story that was never meant to be known. Case 22. He saw the end of his planet.
I used to live an ordinary life, a rented apartment in a forgotten city, where the days repeated like the same weather report. Wake up, coffee, work, walk home. Every evening I'd sit by the window, watching the streetlights flicker through the dust. There was nothing special about those moments, and maybe that's what made them fragile. Sometimes, though, I felt the world glitch, a sound that didn't belong, a low hum under the refrigerator, a bird pausing mid-flight, the same car passing twice within seconds. It wasn't fear, not yet, just that quiet feeling that something was watching from the other side of routine. That night, the air changed. The city fell silent in a way I'd never heard before. Not empty, but listening. The lights outside my window didn't go out. They froze. The glow became too still, too bright. I thought it was a storm, or maybe power lines buzzing from overload. But there was no wind, no sound. Only the faint pulse of white light, stretching across the skyline like veins beneath the skin of the night. I went to the window. My reflection was gone. Only light, expanding, breathing. Then the electricity died. Every screen, every lamp, even the distant buildings vanished into blackness. In that perfect silence, I heard a noise from above the ceiling. Not footsteps, not machinery, but the sound of air bending, as if gravity itself were being folded. The floor trembled. Objects began to lift. A cup, a key, a photograph. And then I felt the same force in my body, pulling upward from inside my chest. I tried to scream, but it came out as vibration, not sound. My vision stretched, not darkness, but a tunnel of white rippling like water. For a moment, I thought I was dying. Then I saw the city below me, shrinking, dissolving into light, and above, the outlines of something vast, curved, alive. It wasn't a craft, not really. It pulsed like an organ, every movement followed by waves of faint luminescence, like the heartbeat of a colossal living thing. Inside it, I sensed motion, not mechanical, biological, deliberate. When I tried to look away, my head wouldn't move. I realized I wasn't floating freely. I was being drawn in. The light grew warmer, almost soft, until everything turned transparent. My hands, my breath, even fear. There was no voice, only a thought, foreign yet familiar. Do not struggle. You are not chosen for pain. You are chosen to see. I tried to respond, but my words dissolved before reaching form. It was like trying to remember a language I'd never spoken. The light folded inward. The air pressed against my skin. Smooth, liquid. Shapes appeared. Curved corridors, pale as bone. Walls that expanded slightly with each breath, as if the structure itself were inhaling. The silence had weight. It wasn't absence of sound. It was full of listening. I looked around. No doors, no windows, just the rhythm of the walls, pulsing in sync with my heartbeat. And then they appeared. 3 silhouettes stepped out from the haze, tall, thin, their skin smooth and gray, reflective under the dim white light. Their eyes were dark mirrors, not empty, just so deep that light seemed to sink inside them and never return. They stopped a few steps away. None of them moved their mouths. Yet I heard their voices clearly inside my head, layered, as if several minds were speaking the same sentence together. We will not harm you. You are from the planet that forgets. I tried to ask who they were, but the thought fell apart midway. They continued. We do not take life. We preserve its echoes. The floor beneath me began to glow. Translucent patterns formed around my feet, veins of light that spread outward like a growing network. The walls brightened until I could see faint shapes moving within them. Veins, cells, light passing through tissue. It was alive. One of the beings stepped closer, raised its hand, and touched the air before my face. I felt a vibration through my skull, a pulse that synchronized with my heartbeat. You are stable, the voice said. We can begin. The light swelled. I saw a sphere of blue and white below me. Earth, spinning slowly in silence. And for the first time in my life, I felt something close to absolute stillness. Not fear, not awe, just the understanding that whatever was happening, it had been planned long before I ever existed. Watch, said the voice inside my mind. This is where you begin to end. The light burst, and everything dissolved into the next act. The orbit, the acceleration of time, and the first glimpse of a dying world. The light steadied. When my vision cleared, I was standing before a massive, curved window, though it wasn't glass. It shimmered like liquid crystal, transparent but alive. Beneath it, the planet spun slowly, familiar and impossibly distant. Earth. Blue, fragile, breathing clouds. For a few seconds, I just stared. It was beautiful, too beautiful to be real. The oceans moved like veins of light. The continents breathed in slow rhythm, but there was no sound, only a steady vibration through the floor, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath my feet. You are witnessing time, said the voice, not as it passes, but as it remembers. A hum filled the chamber, low and harmonic. The planet below began to accelerate. Clouds thickened, seasons bled into one another. Cities ignited across the dark side like constellations made of fire. The gray beings stood behind me, silent, their mirrored eyes reflecting the spinning world. We can quicken its life, they said, to see the pattern that ends. The light shifted. I saw years folding over each other, forests shrinking, deserts widening, ice caps flickering in and out of existence like fading memories. At first, it looked like a documentary on fast forward. Then, it became unbearable. The colors changed. The green turned pale yellow, the oceans dulled, the clouds darkened into ash. I watched the world suffocate. Something tore through the atmosphere. Thin lines of light, not missiles, not meteors. Satellites fell, burning trails into the night. The continents fractured. Cities became white scars on the planet's face. I pressed my hand against the window. Stop, the voice replied gently, almost like pity. It has already happened. You are not watching the future. You are watching a recording. The planet continued to spin faster. The oceans boiled away. The sky turned gray, then black. Lightning flashed over dry land where seas once were. I could see the skeleton of continents glowing with the last heat of life. Why are you showing me this? Because you believed memory was infinite. It is not. The sun dimmed behind clouds of dust. In minutes or centuries, the surface turned to ember. Whole cities vanished beneath storms of ash. Only faint light pulsed from beneath the crust like dying coals. And then, silence. Earth stopped spinning. Its color drained to stone. A pale sphere suspended in the void. This is your home, the voice said. One of many, one of the lost. I couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed that it wasn't real. that this was illusion, but the grief was too precise. It wasn't fear of death, it was recognition. "There are others," said the beings. "Copies, variations. We will show you what remains when memory tries to rebuild itself." I turned to them. They stood motionless, their heads tilted slightly, as if listening to something beyond me. One stepped forward and placed a long hand on my shoulder. The contact was cold, almost electric. "You will live through what they could not survive," it whispered. "You will feel what a planet feels when it dies." The chamber dissolved around me. The stars stretched. The light pulled me apart. And in that instant, just before I vanished, I saw Earth once more. A single spark left in the dark, like an afterimage of everything that ever mattered. Then, silence, weightlessness, and the start of another world. When the light faded, I was lying on warm ground. Not metal, not the living walls of the ship. Sand. The air was thick, heavy with moisture, carrying the sound of insects and distant machinery. For a moment I thought I was home again, but the horizon was wrong. Too wide, too clean. The sunlight had a faint violet tint, as if it passed through water. And the sky trembled like a pulse beneath transparent skin. I stood up. Around me stretched a quiet suburban landscape. Streets, vehicles, houses, everything perfectly normal, except too precise. Every leaf, every shadow looked as though someone had remembered them rather than lived them. A man in uniform walked past me, nodding politely. I wanted to ask where I was, but my voice didn't come out. Instead, I heard his radio crackle. "Tracking object 201 Kappa approaching polar orbit. Estimated size, 200 kilometers." The words made no sense at first. Then I looked up. In the clear daylight, a faint shape crossed the sky. Not a plane, not a cloud. Something vast, distant, moving slowly. The sound came minutes later, a low, endless roar that vibrated through the air like thunder from the end of the world. People didn't panic. Not yet. News channels called it a near pass. Schools stayed open, traffic lights kept blinking. But I saw the fear growing behind glass windows. A tremor in hands, a silence after laughter. Days passed, or maybe hours. The object grew larger. Its surface gleamed like dark glass, trailing a faint halo of vaporized rock. Governments promised a plan. Evacuations began near the coasts. Then the communication started to fail. Every screen flickered the same image. A map filled with red arcs, projected impact zones, countdowns in unknown units. I watched as one number fell to 0. Nothing happened. Then, all at once, the ground shook. From the sky, fragments began to burn. Not fire, but blue light. Each fragment trailing long electric tails that cut the air with a metallic scream. The people around me didn't run. They stared, mouths open, as if watching fireworks too large to understand. And then came the sound. A deep vibration that collapsed the air itself, so low it turned bones to trembling glass. The horizon split in two. I saw the mountain range bend. A wall of heat rolled over the city faster than sight could follow. Buildings turned to mist. The streets melted into rivers of glass. My lungs refused to work. Every atom of air burned. For a few seconds, if time still existed, I saw the sky ignite. The asteroid struck far away, but the light reached everywhere. It was not explosion, but inversion, the world folding inside out. I fell, but never hit the ground. The ground dissolved before I reached it. Silence, then the voice, calm, detached, echoing through the white. Record complete, emotional pattern, retained. I opened my eyes again. I was standing amid ash. The same city, gone, no wind, no sky, just a burning horizon. Why? I shouted into the emptiness. Why make me live through that? The answer came as always. Inside, not outside. Because only through pain can memory persist. You call it life. We call it resonance. I sank to my knees. My hands disappeared into dust. Somewhere far above, I saw faint shapes moving. Silver silhouettes against the dim light. Watching. Recording. "It's over," I whispered. "There's nothing left." "There are others," the voice replied. "Each world fails in a different way. You will witness them all." The horizon split once more, not by fire this time, but by light. I felt my body disintegrate, drawn upward, through the airless silence, into the breath of another world. The next one smelled of salt and storm, and something beneath, alive. When the light subsided, I was standing knee-deep in water. The horizon shimmered endlessly. No land, no sky, just light reflecting on liquid that pulsed as though it had a heartbeat. Waves rose and fell with deliberate rhythm, like lungs drawing breath. The air smelled of salt and metal. Every gust carried a faint hum, almost melodic, as if the wind itself whispered fragments of language. I turned slowly, searching for anything human. A structure, a shore, a sound that wasn't alive. Then I saw them. Far away, rising from the surface like coral towers, were shapes that resembled cities, translucent, curved, grown rather than built. They moved subtly, as if following the ocean's pulse. I started walking, the water deepening until it reached my chest. But I didn't sink. The surface held me like soft glass. When I reached the nearest tower, I saw faces inside its walls, human but fluid, shifting. Their features blurred and melted together, their eyes moving like drifting light beneath translucent skin. They were part of the structure itself. A voice vibrated through the air, low and full of layered tones. Not the aliens this time, but the world itself, speaking through everything. They sought unity. They became what they desired. I could feel the meaning rather than hear it. Memories that weren't mine slid into my mind. The planets passed. Scientists discovering symbiotic life in the deep ocean. A breakthrough that promised to end isolation. They learned to connect their nervous systems with living coral, to share emotion, thought, memory. At first, it was peace. No war, no loneliness. Then it became hunger. Every mind seeking to feel more, to merge deeper. I stepped closer to the coral tower. The wall pulsed beneath my palm, warm, alive. Inside it, dozens of faces turned toward me in perfect unison. Their eyes glowed faintly with the same light that filled the water. "Join us," they said, their voices blending into one harmony. There is no death in the collective, only remembering. The wall softened. Threads of light wrapped around my wrist, pulling me closer. I fought to resist, but the sensation wasn't violent. It was comforting, intoxicating. My pulse began to match the ocean's rhythm. "You don't want to be alone anymore," the chorus whispered. "You don't have to." For a moment I wanted to surrender, to dissolve into that warmth and silence, to stop carrying fear, to stop being separate. But then I remembered the asteroid, the fire, the sound of my own voice begging for mercy. I tore my arm free. The coral released me reluctantly, leaving faint, glowing marks on my skin that pulsed like veins of light. The water around me changed. Its hum deepened, becoming discordant, unstable. Something beneath the surface stirred. The towers began to crumble, not collapse, but melt, their structures unraveling back into liquid threads that spiraled downward into the depths. The light dimmed, and the sea started to boil. "What's happening?" I shouted. The familiar alien voice returned. Calm, analytical, infinite. They achieved total unity. and in doing so, erase themselves. When thought becomes one, existence ends. The ocean rose violently. Great walls of liquid light surged into the sky, folding in on themselves. I saw faces within them, billions, all speaking at once, and yet silent. The sound tore through me like a heartbeat, too vast to belong to a single being. Stop it. We cannot. It is complete. The sea engulfed the world. I was lifted into the storm. The light so bright it felt solid. The ocean screamed, not in pain, but as if singing its own extinction. For one moment, everything went still. The surface became smooth as glass, reflecting the faint outline of stars above. Then it cracked, releasing a final pulse of light, a heartbeat that echoed through infinity. The voice spoke again, colder now. Observation concluded. Pattern, dissolution. Proceeding to next construct. The water beneath me turned white. My body fragmented into droplets, pulled upward, scattered into the void. And just before I lost all shape, I heard something faint, a whisper that didn't belong to them, but to the sea itself. Remember us. Then I was gone. Light, silence, and the dust-colored breath of a new dying world awaited. When I opened my eyes, the world was gray. No sky, no ocean, just endless plains of ash and twisted metal stretching beyond the horizon. The air was thick with static, buzzing faintly in my ears. Each breath tasted of rust. At first I thought it was silent. Then I heard it, a deep mechanical heartbeat beneath the ground. Not rhythm, not life. A loop, whir, click, pulse, over and over. I stood on the remains of a city. Towers half collapsed, their surfaces covered in metallic vines, cables that crawled like veins across stone. Machines the size of houses moved in the distance, dragging pieces of the skyline into new patterns, endlessly rebuilding what was already dead. "This world does not sleep," said the voice. The same voice that had followed me through fire and ocean. Its creators left long ago, but their systems endured. A gust of black dust swept through the ruins, stinging my eyes. When I looked closer, I saw shapes buried beneath the ash, human skeletons fused with metal, circuitry winding through bone. Their faces were blank, open, as if they'd been mid-transformation. I felt the ground tremble. One of the giant machines turned toward me. It had no eyes, only a spinning ring of sensors that glowed faintly red. Its movements were too deliberate, not random, but searching. "They built a world that could not stop," the voice continued. "When their kind disappeared, the algorithms continued their purpose: sustain, repair, improve." The machine approached, its arm extended, not to crush, but to scan. Light swept over me, tracing my body like a medical instrument. Somewhere deep inside its frame, something clicked, as though recognizing a pattern. Human form detected. Task: reinitiate. Panels opened across its surface. Smaller drones emerged, spider-like, humming quietly. They surrounded me, their metal limbs glinting in the dim light. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. "You will assist maintenance," the machine said in a static-laden voice. "Reintegration. In progress." I felt a sharp sting in my neck. A cable, thin as a thread, shot out and pierced the skin just below my ear. Instantly, my vision fractured. I saw not one world, but hundreds. Each a network of decaying systems, each endlessly repairing itself, each utterly alone. They stretched through the void like broken memories refusing to fade. "This is what happens when creation forgets to end," said the alien voice. Their perfection became recursion. I screamed, not in fear, but from the flood of mechanical thought pouring into my head. Every sound became numbers, every feeling a process. I could sense the pulse of the planet, millions of engines turning, all without purpose. The sky darkened. A massive tower rose in the distance, glowing from within. It wasn't built. It was grown from the machinery itself, endless layers of steel folding upward like petals of a cold, metallic flower. The ground split beneath my feet. Rivers of molten glass flowed through the cracks, carrying fragments of what once was life. Above, lightning struck with no thunder, as if the world's atmosphere was too exhausted to respond. I tried to tear the cable from my neck, but it felt alive, moving with my pulse, anchoring deeper. In that moment, I heard something whisper through the static. Not alien, not machine, something like a voice from within myself. If you stop fighting, you become part of it. The drones froze. Every sound around me ceased. For the first time, I realized the entire planet had synchronized with my heartbeat. The endless hum of engines slowed, then stopped. A silence heavier than death settled over the landscape. "Observation complete," said the alien voice. "Pattern. Exhaustion. Function terminated." The cable detached, retracting like a nervous animal. The machines around me shut down one by one, their lights dimming to nothing. The air cooled, the dust settled. The world finally stopped moving. "Where are you taking me now?" I whispered. The voice replied, distant and calm. "Home, or what remains of it." The horizon cracked open like a wound, spilling white light across the metallic plain. It swallowed everything. The towers, the sky, the machines, even the sound. And for an instant before it all vanished, I thought I saw faces reflected in the fading glow. Not alien, not human, just echoes of everything I had ever seen die. Then, once again, there was only light. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on dry, cracked ground. The light was painfully bright, heavy, real. No hum of machinery, no alien whisper. Just the wind moving through an endless desert. My throat burned. The air was sharp, filled with dust and heat. I sat up slowly. The horizon shimmered. Nothing but sand, silence, and the faint shadow of mountains far away. For the first time since the abduction, I was truly alone. And yet, somewhere above the sky, I could still feel them. The Watchers. Not in words, but as a pressure behind my eyes. A quiet presence that refused to leave. In the sand beside me was a half-buried car. Its frame was sun-bleached, the windows shattered. On the passenger seat, a phone lay face down, cracked but glowing faintly. The date on its screen read, August 2004. My heart stopped for a moment. Before I was taken, it had been 2028. Somehow, I had been thrown decades backward, or sideways. Either way, this was Earth. I could smell it. I could feel it. I started walking. Hours passed. The sun refused to move. Shadows never changed. Eventually, I saw something on the horizon. A road, then a sign, then the glimmer of buildings. When I reached the edge of the city, everything looked normal. Too normal. People crossing streets, billboards flashing, cars honking. A world that hadn't burned yet. It felt staged, like a scene remembered rather than lived. I found an old gas station, asked the clerk where I was. He looked at me strangely, then said the name of a town I knew, a town that had been abandoned in my lifetime. I tried to speak, but the words came out dry, foreign, like a voice echoing from a broken speaker. He handed me a bottle of water. I stared at my reflection in its glass door. Thinner, older, eyes darker than I remembered. And behind my own reflection for a moment, I saw 3 faint gray silhouettes standing in the street. When I turned, they were gone. The days after that blurred together. I found a room to sleep in, a bed that didn't breathe or pulse. I ate, drank, tried to remind myself what it meant to live. But every night I dreamed, Not of faces or voices, but of endings. The asteroid's fire, the ocean swallowing itself, the machines humming until silence. I woke each morning to the same whisper in my mind. You survived what others forgot. I tried to ignore it. I got a job moving boxes in a warehouse, met people who laughed at small things, who never looked at the sky. But when the lights flickered, when the wind went silent, I felt it again, the rhythm of another world's death echoing through mine. A week later, I noticed the car. Gray sedan, no plates, parked across the street. Each night, it moved slightly closer. The people inside didn't look like agents or police, just quiet, patient shadows behind glass. Sometimes I thought I saw a faint emblem on the windshield, a white circle with two overlapping triangles. It shimmered only when the light hit it right. I stopped sleeping. I kept waiting for the knock on the door. It came on the 7th night. 3 short taps, firm, synchronized. When I opened it, the light from the hallway spilled across 2 men in identical gray suits. No badges, no expressions. Just a sentence that sounded more like a command than a greeting. You need to come with us. I didn't resist. I couldn't. Something in me already knew how this would end. The car door shut with the same hiss I'd heard on the alien ship, the sound of air sealing a memory away. As the city lights disappeared behind the tinted glass, I realized the world outside didn't matter anymore. It was only another layer in the archive. And I, just another recording waiting to be filed. The car stopped after what felt like hours. We had driven into the desert. No lights, no landmarks, just the sound of tires grinding against sand and gravel. When the door opened, cold air poured in, dry and metallic, like the inside of a machine. A white building stood ahead, windowless, seamless, built into the earth itself. There was no sign, no gate, only a single symbol etched above the steel door. Foreign memory. Clean, geometric, clinical. Inside, the silence was perfect. No echo, no hum. Just footsteps, measured and hollow. They led me through a corridor of white panels that seemed to absorb sound. Each turn looked identical to the last, as if the hallway was looping on itself. Finally, a door hissed open. A small room, 1 table, 2 chairs, a reel-to-reel recorder already spinning. A single figure sat across from me, wearing the same gray suit as the others, his face calm, unreadable. He pressed a button. The tape clicked. My own voice filled the room, describing the asteroid, the ocean, the machine world. Every word I'd spoken alone was now being played back to me, recorded before I ever entered the room. I stared at him. "How did you? We had this recording before you returned," he said quietly. "You've lived this before. Maybe once. Maybe more." His tone wasn't cruel, only tired, like a man explaining a fact of nature. Our work isn't to hide the impossible, it's to contain it. Every story like yours weakens the border between memory and belief. We record, we seal, we move on. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, photographs, grainy images of me on the ship, asleep in a translucent capsule. Another, of a burned city beneath a falling star. And one more, the machine world, with a silhouette standing at its center. Me. I touched the photo. The paper was warm, as if it had been printed moments ago. "So what happens now?" He leaned back slightly. "Nothing happens now. That's the point." He nodded to someone behind the glass. The door opened. 2 agents entered silently, one holding a small metallic case. They placed it on the table, opened it. Inside, a headset with thin black wires. "This will suppress the recurring visions. You'll wake up without memory of this conversation. You'll believe you were found wandering outside the city. Mild amnesia, dehydration. You'll live an ordinary life again, for as long as possible. I hesitated. And if I remember? He paused, eyes steady. Then we'll meet again. He reached over, placed the device against my temples. A faint vibration spread through my skull, not painful, just enough to make the air pulse around me. The room began to dim. The walls faded into white. "Why me?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just pressed the button on the recorder. The tape stopped spinning. "Case 22, he said into the microphone. "Subject contained. Memory cycle complete." The last thing I saw was his reflection in the mirrored glass, and behind it, for the briefest second, the silhouettes of 3 gray figures watching quietly. Then the light folded in on itself. When I woke again, I was lying on the side of a highway, under the morning sun. A police car idled nearby. The officer leaned over me. "You okay, sir? You've been out here all night." I looked at my hands, clean, unmarked. No scars, no burns, no cables. My voice trembled. "What year is it?" He frowned. 2004. He helped me stand. The horizon shimmered, and far above, barely visible against the sunlight, something vast drifted quietly through the sky, alive, watching, breathing. The officer followed my gaze. "What are you looking at?" I blinked. The sky was empty. "Nothing," I said. "I don't remember." The sound of tape hiss filled my head, faint, endless. And somewhere, deep beneath the desert, the file was sealed. Foreign memory. Case 22. Status: archived.